They said it couldn't be done. They said the system was too corrupt, the power too entrenched, and the political will too weak. But yesterday Congress delivered a verdict so overwhelming, so bipartisan, that it signals an absolute total victory for the populist movement and the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. The House of Representatives passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act in a landslide, 427-1. The Senate followed immediately, passing the bill by unanimous consent. The bill is now on the desk of President Donald Trump. The political battle is over. The real war for the files, the final dirty high-stakes fight, is about to begin. My name is Rufus Brown, and I'm here to track the ultimate showdown. The focus is no longer on if the bill will become law, but on the terrifying question of what the White House will do after it becomes law. The president has promised to sign the bill, but the deep skepticism among victims, advocates, and key congressional rebels is justified. I believe the administration has already activated a final, sophisticated legal weapon, what we have been calling the Smokescreen Defense, to ensure the most damning truth about the elite never sees the light of day. This is the story of the final desperate block. The scale of the House vote, 427-1, is not just a triumph for transparency. It is the ultimate political humiliation for the White House and the GOP establishment. For months, the President, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and the House Speaker fought this bill, dismissing it as a Democratic hoax and attempting to stall the discharge petition. The President publicly called his own Republican allies, like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, traitors for joining the effort. But the MAGA rebellion held firm. The populist fury ignited by the President's broken promise to release all the files proved to be politically unstoppable. The President's 11th-hour reversal, the shocking U-turn from calling it a hoax to claiming we have nothing to hide, was not a sign of virtue. It was a desperate act of political surrender. He knew the vote was secured, and he knew a 427-1 tally against him would be permanent, irreversible proof that he had lost control of his party and his base. By publicly agreeing to the bill, he was attempting to seize a share of the credit, but the political reality is that the vote was a repudiation. As one of the bill's co-sponsors noted, we fought the President, the Attorney General, the FBI Director, the Speaker of the House, and the Vice President to get this win. The unanimous passage through the Senate, expedited by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, confirmed that Washington, under immense public pressure, was unified in its demand for accountability. The bill is now law-bound for the President's signature, and the White House has signaled it will be signed. The political victory has been won. But the real fight for the files is about to expose the legal loopholes the powerful rely on. The decision to sign or veto the Epstein Files Transparency Act is the final high-stakes executive choice facing the President. While a senior White House official has stated the President will sign the bill, the threat of a veto cannot be ignored. If he signs the bill, the political damage from the Margar Civil War might be contained, allowing him to claim credit for the file's release. If he issues a veto, the final one-man block against a 427-1 House vote and a unanimous Senate, he would be making the most definitive statement possible, that his executive power is a higher priority than the will of Congress and the demands of his base for transparency. A veto would immediately ignite an attempt at a two-thirds override, a dramatic political spectacle that would further confirm the populist movement's deepest fears about the ultimate hypocrisy of the establishment. However, the consensus among observers I track is that the veto is highly unlikely. The political optics are too toxic. The administration has a far more subtle, legally insulated weapon at its disposal, a weapon that can block the files even after the bill becomes law. This is where the story shifts from the halls of Congress to the hidden corridors of the Department of Justice. The Epstein Files Transparency Act is a powerful piece of legislation. It mandates that the DOJ publicly release all unclassified records related to the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell investigations within 30 days of the bill becoming law. Crucially, it specifically bars the government from redacting information based on embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. This is the key political win. However, the bill does contain necessary exceptions that allow the government to withhold material that would identify victims or would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution. This final exception is the loophole the White House appears poised to exploit. Days before the congressional landslide, President Trump ordered Attorney General Pam Bondi to launch new, aggressive investigations into the Epstein ties of his political rivals, specifically naming former President Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, and others. As critics like Congressman Thomas Massie warned, this was the activation of the smokescreen defense. By creating these new open and politically targeted active federal investigations, the Department of Justice can now argue that the overwhelming majority of the files, including those detailing Epstein's contacts, financial movements, and political connections, are legally protected from release. The White House's play is a legal masterpiece of obstruction. The delay. The law requires the DOJ to release the files within 30 days of the signature. The Justice Department will likely use this time to compile a massive, highly redacted data dump, citing the ongoing investigation clause for every key name or detail related to Clinton, Summers, or any other figure under the newly ordered probes. The redaction justification. The bill does require the DOJ to provide a written justification for every piece of information withheld. This will force the Attorney General to publicly justify why records are being held back. But the justification to protect the integrity of an active federal investigation is legally sound. The narrowly tailored fight. The bill specifies that any withholding must be narrowly tailored and temporary. This is the point where the battle moves to the courts and to Congress. Transparency advocates will have to sue the DOJ, arguing that withholding thousands of pages because of a new, politically motivated investigation is not narrowly tailored. This fight could last for years, tying up the release of the most critical documents long after the president is out of office. The White House can claim the moral high ground by saying, "We signed the bill, but the investigation into the Democrats is too important to compromise." This allows them to appease the transparency crowd while simultaneously using the legal system to protect the contents of the files, potentially hiding information relevant to the president's own past, associations, and the actions of his wealthy friends and donors. The final block is not the veto. It is the sophisticated use of the legal system to uphold the president as promised to investigate his rivals while permanently undermining the promise of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The populist revolt has succeeded in forcing Congress to act. That is a massive historic win. But the final, most consequential battle, the fight against the smokescreen defense, has just begun. The next 30 days will be critical. The moment the bill is signed, the clock starts ticking on the Department of Justice. We will be tracking the final decision, analyzing the implications of the active investigation loophole, and documenting every potential attempt by the government to delay or obstruct the truth. To ensure you don't miss a single step in this final dramatic phase of the controversy, we have gathered all of my analysis into one dedicated place. If you want to follow the final showdown and understand the legal tactics being deployed, make sure you head over and subscribe to my dedicated playlist, The Trump-Epstein Saga. And for a fast, urgent recap of this entire smokescreen defense and the implications of the landslide vote, click the link right now to watch my 60-second short. The war for the files is now in the hands of the White House. We will be watching every move.